Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're Sotah daf Lamed. We are going to begin on Lamed Amud Al, 5 lines from the top. Amarav Asi Amarav. The Amarlan, some say was Amarabba Bar Isi Amarav. That according to all these opinions, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Eliezer, all these opinions, Kul Sviru, who they all hold the Ein Sheni Oisa Shlishi B'chulin. So we learn in yesterday's daf, there's actually a machlokas, even though most people say, like these 5 opinions, that when it comes to food and drink, which is chulin, it stops on the sheni level, and only truma and kachim have the capacity to become tummy even further, to a shlishi or even to a revi. However, chulin cannot become a shlishi. Now, there is an opinion, as we saw in yesterday's daf, that that's not true. That really a person can have chulin go to a shlishi level. However, all these opinions, which seems to be a strong majority, disagree. How do we see that they all disagree and they all feel that chulin could only go up to a sheni? So we learn each one of them now. Rabbi Meir. How do we see this with the sheet of Rabbi Meir? Dinan. Kol hatayin bias mayim medivri seifrim. Any time which a person requires bias mayim, going to a mikveh, but it's only a din d'Rabbanan. So when is that? So this is regarding Gilchas Davar. Says Rashi, Kol shehu tahar min atayra. Really, min atayra b'deraisa, you're pure. Chachamim his kikuhu levu b'mayim li-tahir. However, the Chachamim instituted for various reasons, as stipulated elsewhere in Masechet Shabbos, that a person needs to still immerse themselves. If a person, let's say, would immerse their body, or the majority of their body, in drawn water, and what used to be, as the Gemara over there explains, people would go to the mikveh, and it was dirty water. That was what was matahir you. Then they would remove that dirty water with mayim shuavim, and people started thinking that it was the mayim shuavim that was matahir, and therefore because of that, the chachamim were geyser. Or ba'oichel chatzi pras oichlin tamein. If a person eats chatzi pras of oichlin tamein, none of impure foods, v'yadayim shesrichum tefila, or if your hands need tefila, kulam b'torah shnayim hitinum. So, since they're considered to be a sheni, so says the Gemara, matame as a kaidish. It could, if you touch kaidish, it's matamet, which means it becomes a shlishi, and it could even make something else, another kaidish impure, or paisel. Upaisel is a truma. And a sheni could touch and impurify, or make impure truma, but only to the shlishi level. Why it's called a paisel? Because it can no longer go any further. However, Beferish, he says, mutter b'chulin b'maiser. He's mutter and chulin and maiser de ramers. V'chachamim oisim b'maiser. There's a machlokus when it comes to maiser, but everyone holds that chulin is not a problem, because if you touched chulin does not become a shlishi. That's even the chachamim. They only disagree by maiser. Says Rashi, b'achila. The only answer is to eat it. Negia shari, but touching it's allowed. V'chulin afal echol, also to eat it. As it's stated in the 3rd and final parak in Chagiga, v'hu adin nami del rabbanan ein sheni oisa shlish v'chulin. The chachamim agree to the sheet of Rabban of Rameir. B'haydel chashul hu lefishlo nisparshu shemoisam. Rameir machlakaisu kaimar. So the truth is, the chachamim also don't hold that chulin becomes a shlishi. But nonetheless, we don't mention that because the name isn't mentioned, so we're only mentioning names. But the truth is, it's Rameir as well as the Chachamim also agree it cannot become a shlishi. They only argue by Meiser Lagabe Achila. But even the Chachamim hold touching is not a problem. Okay, that's number 1. Rav Yossi also will agree to this. Had Amra. We already said this actually. Why? Dim Isa Lisa Ravi B'Truma V'Chamish B'Kaidish. Because he learned that Kal V'Chaimer, says Rashi, the Shlishi B'Chulin Min HaTorah, that Shlishi, if in fact Shlishi was Chulin Min HaTorah, Lasi Ravi B'Truma, then all of a sudden he would say that the Truma is Ravi, Mekal V'Chaimer Mitzvol Yoim. then he would learn out from the case of a Tful Yoim. As we recall, Tful Yoim is mutter b'chulin, was also b'truma. So therefore, we end up saying from that kavachimer, it must be that we go one step further. So if chulin is in fact a shlishi, then he would say that the truma would be a revi. So because of that, it's clear that he does not hold like that. In the chamishi b'chaydish, mervi b'truma b'kavachimer mechusar kippurim, as we learned by mechusar kippurim, that mechusar kippurim is asur b'trum, is allowed to eat truma once the sun is set and sets a chachavim. Does not allowed to eat kaidish until he brings the karbanos. So we see that truma were more lenient. So if truma is a revi, then we should say that kaidish should be a chamishi. He doesn't say that. It must be that because he's saying that everything is just a step less than that, namely that truma is a shlishi, it must be the chulin cannot become a shlishi. Rabbi Shua did not. Rabbi Lezer oimer ha'oichel rishon rishon. You are what you eat. So if a person eats a chatzi pras from food, which is a rishon toma, so you yourself, your body becomes a rishon l'toma. This is a din d'Rabbanan. Sheni, if you eat food which is on a sheni level, so your body becomes a sheni. Because even though the truth is, Adam v'Kalim can only really become a Rishon, however, with the Rabbanan we say that it could happen. Shlishi. If you eat a food which is a shlishi, your body becomes a shlishi l'toma. Rabbi Yeshua Omer, this is why we're bringing this down. Rabbi Yeshua says no. Ha'oichel rishon. If you eat a rishon, v'oichel sheni, or you eat a food which is on a sheni level, sheni, then you become a sheni. So no matter what, you only can get to the level of a sheni. Shlishi. Let's say you eat food which is a shlishi. Sheni. But kaidish means sheni b'truma. It becomes a sheni with regard to kaidish, but not by truma. And also b'chulin shenasu al taharas truma. When it comes to chulin, which is on the level of the sanctity of taharas truma, so we'll also say it will become a sheni. So what do we see from here? We see clearly only, and we'll see Rashi in a second, that, well, actually, let's continue. The Gemara says it, beferish. Al taharas a truma in, al taharas a kodesh lo. So what do we see? When it comes to taharas truma, that is what becomes sheni, but not taharas kodesh, which it'll be like chulin, since it's like he said nothing and it's only chulin. Al miksaver ein sheni oisa shlishi b'chulin. So look in Rashi. Be'eza chulin amru. What are we talking about? Sha'oichel shlishi. If you eat a shlishi, shalahen nasa sheni l'kaidish b'chulin shenasu al taras truma. So if you have kaidish, which is nasa sheni l'kaidish b'chulin shenasu al taras truma, it has the status of a sheni because even though it's chulin, you treat it on a taras truma level. Shabalein kayin. Because the owner of this food is a kohen, v'ragel b'truma. And since he's ragel b'truma, even though it's chulin, he always eats even his chulin foods on that level. The kibul level echel chulin shelo b'taharas truma. Kadesha he ragel a trumasa b'tahara. So, for example, if let's say he would be waiting for seitza chachavim, so the technically he's still allowed to eat chulin, but if he holds that he's very strict, he'll also not eat his chulin until after he's tahar. Okay. Says Rashi, "What taharas hakadosh batul daita ve'in bedvar klum." Okay. Weiter. Ancient shlishi. So that was the raya. Rabbi Lezer also, Desanya, Rabbi Lezer Oimer, Shloshten Shavin, the three of them are, Shloshtem Shavin, three of them are equal. Harishain, Shibakaidish, Shibachulin, Vishibatruma. That when it comes to Rishon, Metame Shnayim, it's Metame on two levels, Upaisel Echa Bakaidish. And it can passel one of them with regard to Kaidish until Revi level. Matama echad upaisel echad b'truma. It could be matama one who can paisel one by truma only until the shlishi level. Upaisel echad b'chulin. It can only paisel one regard to chulin until a sheni level. So he explains it very clearly that when it comes to the Kodesh, Truma, and Chulin, there are 3 different stages. And it says explicitly by Kodesh is until Revi, Truma is until Shlishi, and it's Paisel Echad B'Chulin, which means only up until a Sheni, that's it. Rabbi Lezer did not. Rabbi Lezer, Omer Chalni telos mina tahira ala tameya. Let's say you have challah in which you have 2 different doughs, which you would want to take from tahara onto challah, which is tameya. So you have 2 different doughs. Ketza, what do? Shtei isos achas tahar v'achas tameya. So you have 2 doughs, one which is pure and one which is impure. Noitel kedechala mi'isa shul horma chalasa. So you should take the proper amount of challah from the dough in which it was not taken off yet. V'noisin pachas mikabetza be'emsa. And you should take a middle dough which will connect the pure dough and the impure dough, connecting them. And since it's pachas mikabetza, since it's less than a betza, it doesn't become tameh. Kedei lito min hamukaf. The Indian is, in order to take this off, it has to be connected, so it's almost like one dough. So this middle dough, which is pachas makabetza, which is going to connect these 2 other doughs, one pure, which is impure, so you're able to remove this challah from the tahara one for the tamea one. So that's 1 eitzah, says Rashi. So what is this? So it's brought down Masechtas Challah. Shir challah echad l'chav daled. 1/24 of the dough goes to the kohen as challah. Now, nitma isasa. Let's say if b'mezid you were made the dough tameh, so this becomes a little bit more problematic. If b'mezid you need to give 1/24. It says shogegas onen anusa echad mimem ches. However, if it's only b'shoigeg, then it's only 1/48. B'mezid echad mechav daled shoyeh heichayten nisker. So you normally, so if it's b'shoigeg, so you only have to take off 1/48. However, if it became tameh b'mezid, so it's still 1/24. We don't want you to be rewarded for sinning. So therefore, you still have to take off more. Rabbi Lezer Omer heichad dematamis mezida tolish acheres b'tahara. So what you should do is you should connect in a certain way. Tolish means detach it from that which is pure. Ketzad, says Rashi, taset shemina mukaf, so that it's like connected with the tahara notelos kedei chalos atamei mi'isa tahara, that which is the dough itself, but here it's from a tahara dough. So it has to be mukaf. Says Rashi, mukaf is lashon mechuber or mekoyev. So this is a way of doing this by having them connected. So it's not a problem because since this dough is pachas mikabetza, you don't have to worry about the dinim of tumah. As we continue to laman amavez, v'chachamim oisrin, v'chachamim aseret. Chachamim say this is not acceptable, as we'll explain why. But Tanya kibetza, and we learned the amount of the middle piece is actually the size of a betza. So savrua idi beisa rishayna. Everyone hold idi beisa rishayna. We're talking about this first piece. B'chulin hatvulin l'chala lo kachal damu, and the chulin, which is tvulin l'chala, it does not have the same din as chala. My law about kamifli. The mar saver ein sheni oisa shlishi b'chulin. Umar saver sheni oisa shlishi b'chulin. So basically, what we're saying over here is the Chachamim say, even though it's chulin, this middle dough can become tameh, and then the other dough can become a shlishi. Because again, if let's say this dough is a rishon l'tumah, the tummy one, and it's touching this middle dough, so maybe this middle dough, if it's the size of a beitza, it says v'chachamim oisrim b'tanya b'kabetza, so now it becomes a sheni l'tumah. And therefore, according to the Chachamim, it could make the other dough into a shlishi l'tumah. So therefore, you're not really accomplishing anything because the tameh dough will end up making the tahar dough also tameh, because even though it's chulin, according to the Chachamim, the din is that chulin does become tameh on a shlishi level, which means that this would be a raya to this, what we're trying to say all along, that according to the other Shita, according to the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, he holds that you could do this, because even if the middle dough does become tameh, it doesn't matter, because the pure dough will not become tameh, because the middle dough will only become a sheni, and a sheni cannot make chulin into a shlishi. So that's one possible answer. So let's look at question 7. Shtei isos, achas tahara v'achas tameya, v'naisin kebeitza be'emsa, kedei lito min amukaf, v'chachamim oisrim. But my commitment, chachamim Rabbi Eliezer, they want us to give 2 of 4 answers. Obviously, only saw 1. So the first answer is, maybe we see from here whether that a sheni is oisa shlishi b'chulin. Okay, that's one possibility. Look in Rashi. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbanan Rabbi Eliezer, the Shari, Sarah Ein Sheni Oisa Shlish B'chulin. Rabbanan the Asri, Sarah Sheni Oisa Shlish B'chulin. V'yatamil L'chala Lifnei Kriyas Hashem. V'af Gav D'chulin Hu. Right, that's the whole point. So Amar Rav Mari Beredu Rav Kahanan. Kol Yalma Ein Sheni Oisa Shlish B'chulin. No, the truth is that middle dough cannot do anything as far as it making the other dough, the tahar dough, impure, because a sheni cannot make a shlishi tameh on a chul for chulin. So v'hacha b'chulin hatfulin l'chala kimifagi. What is that? Mar sabar kachalo damu, or mar sabar lo kachalo damu. So if we look in Rashi, the kol yalma v'yafilu rabbanon ein sheni oisa shlishi b'chulin. V'hai de ka'asir rabbanon mishum iksabi chulin hatvulin. So the point is that the fact that it is connected to it, so therefore because that in itself becomes tameh. It's not like the chal itself. So then what's the problem? Are you allowed to cause things to become tameh? This middle piece of the dough will become a sheni. So how is that acceptable? So it's possible that we can say, okay, so you made this little piece of dough tameh nishkaferach, and therefore that's allowed. They are not allowed to do so. Did I skip something? What are the 4 answers? I only saw 3. Let's see what it says here. Im chulin hatfulin kechala l'chala kechala damu. Im muter ligrom tuma l'chulin sheberetz Yisrael. And in the question it says 2 of 3. All right, so there's only 3 possibilities. Okay. All right, weiter. Bo b'yoyim darish Rabbi Akiva v'chul. So my committee. So what exactly is this machlokas? What is this talking about? So the Mishnah said that when it comes to the Ari Halavim, there's a stira. One place it says that we have 1,000 amos out of it, and the other one says 2,000. So according to both opinions, the 1,000 amos is a migrash, which is like an open area with trees. And then why does it say 2,000? So according to one opinion, it's Tchum Shabbos. And according to Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yosef Glili, no, it's just talking about Sotah Sakromim. There's fields and vineyards in that area. So one mentions Tchum Shabbos, and one doesn't. So the one who mentions Tchum Shabbos, back in the Gemara, Bo b'yom dar shebikivuchu, b'may kimifki, mar savet Tchumim derais, or mar savet Rabbanon. The fact that you learn out from a pasuk must be that you're saying that Tchumim is deraisa, which is in the machlokes whether or not the din of 2,000 amos is taka din deraisa or not. TA 10. Ksiv ma'daisam alpayim ba'ama mikira ama b'chutza el ba'ama ma'dar shebikiva ma'dar shebelezer u'maykimifgi. So again, whether or not the 2,000 is Tchum Shabbos or Sotah and Kromim, machlokes the Tchumim is deraisa or not. Vait. Tanurban. Boy bayoim dar shebikiva b'shashal Yisrael min hayom. When the Bnei Yisrael came up from the Yamsuf, they cast their eyes to sing Shira, Oz Yashir. They ketzad Amr Shira. How did they do it? Ki gadol hamakris ahala. just like the adult or the chazan who says Hallel. That's also how Oz Yashir was said. In Oinin Acharav, Rashi Prakim. And they would say the Rashi Prakim. So, like the opening lines. That's the Rashi Prakim. Moshe Omer Ashir Hashem, Ve'hein Omerim Ashir Hashem. So that's how it began. Moshe Omer Ki Go Ga, Ve'hein Omerim Ashir Hashem. In other words, they kept repeating Ashir Hashem as Moshe continued through. Rabbi Lezer ben Oshel Rabbi Yosef Omer Ki Katan Hamakras Hahalel. Like a kid, Ve'hein Omer Acharav Kol Ma Shu Omer. Whatever is said, we repeat. So that's the opinion. Question 8. Either it was kol perek uperek, or imo kol anu acharav, or imo kol hashira. Moshe Omer Ashir Hashem, Ve'hein Omer Ashir Hashem. Moshe Omer ki go ga, Ve'hein Omer ki go ga. So that's another opinion. And the Chemi Omer Kisayfer HaPyris al Shema, just like the person who recites the Shema, which said before, Beveis Achneses, Shu Poisech Tchila, Vein Oinin Acharav. In other words, Pyris al Shema, if you look in Rashi, Kisayfer, Melamed Tinaikis, like a teacher who tadir Beveis Achneses, he's often in the shul. Uparis al Shema lasara hanoadim paris lashon paris hachag lifnei hachag, before. Manchil bebrachos shalifnei kriya Shema, referring to the brachos before the Shema. In oinim achora b'karin kulin yachad, and they all recite it together. So that's what it's referring to. Either that it's repeated line by line, or statement by statement, or they actually would say the whole thing together. So how could they say it together? That they had the similar Ruach HaKodesh to say the exact same words at the exact same time. So that's what it means. That Kisayfer HaPyris on Shema Beis HaKnesses Shu Poisech Techil V'Hina Oinen Acharav. They're based not Acharav but together in unison. But Mike Mifli, Rabbi Kiva Savar, Rabbi Kiva who holds that it was done according to Rabbi Kiva, Rashi Prakim, Lamor, a milsa kamaisa. It's referring to the first statement, like the Rashi Prakim, the top. Rabbi Lezer ben Osher Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Yosef Glili Savar, Lamor akol milsa means you repeat everything that was said. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Nechemiah Savar, v'yamru kuhu b'hadi adadi. They say everything together. Leimor the pasach Moshe Bereisha, that he began. Tanabanan Darish Rabbi Yosef Guli b'shashal Yisrael min hayam nasr nehem olemer shira. So they wanted to sing the shira. To Ketzid Amru shira. Olo mutal al birche imoi. Even a baby that was by the knees of the mother. V'tinik yonik mishnei imoi. Even a little child that's nursing, kivan ro as a shechina. As soon as they were able to see the shechina, the baby was hagbiat savadai, lifted up its neck. But tinik shama dan mipiv, and the tinik removed the dan from its mouth. V'amru zekeli van vehu, shenemar mipi oilim, even from the mouth of infants, the yonkin in nursing yisad to ois. Hashem's strength was established. How do we know that even not only young infants, but even a child in utero sang shira? Shenamar, as the pasuk says on Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph, which is brought down, I think, Suvas as well. Yep. So it's b'mekalois baruch Elokim Hashem mimkor Yisrael. That says mimkor Yisrael. It's somehow al iski makar. It's referring to the child that's inside. B'halu chozu. What do you mean? We don't see. So Rav Tanchum keres nasalhen ka aspaklaria hameira v'ro. They're able to actually see somehow like through clear glass. Of course, the Shekhinah is not physical, so therefore perhaps we can understand it on a spiritual level as well, that they're able to feel the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu even b'mei imoi. Ad kan.